Hey guys, it's Bea. So today's video is going to be a bit different from what I'm used to talking about, because today we're talking about PC, specifically how I built my PC with zero starting knowledge about building a PC. So I wanted to make this video for other people who are like me, who have zero knowledge about building a PC but sort of want to get into it. And this is some sort of like a jumping point for those who want to do that. Just a disclaimer, I am no expert in building a PC, so this is more of like tips and advice for people with zero knowledge and like sort of like basic things to start up on and how to like develop the researching skills in order to be able to find the right information about the products that you're looking for, things like that. And also I also want to sort of share my PC build and also share like my line of thinking. Maybe others would also be able to gain from that line of thinking and also be able to benefit from my build and sort of like use that as a jumping point as well, or a template for their own build. So yeah, I hope you guys will enjoy this video. So let's get started. Just a bit of a background, I was actually a bit intimidated about PCs because I have so little knowledge about the different parts and I don't really understand the different hardwares enough to make the proper choice in terms of the parts that I'm supposed to get for a PC build. So I was originally inclined to buying a laptop, and like the type of laptop that I wanted to get is a bit pricey, and you know, in the end it would have cost me probably ×2 of what my PC build is right now. I feel like I really saved a lot from building a PC. And when it comes to a laptop, I think the greatest benefit would be portability, but I don't really go out much. I enjoy gaming or whatever indoors. I don't want to sort of bring my setup in another place and do my thing there, like play video games or even edit videos. Like I don't think I can do that outside of my comfort zone or my room. I feel more like focused in this room, and like I prefer to be indoors when doing that. So I think like the best option for me was really a desktop as opposed to laptop. I guess I was just used to using a laptop all these years because I haven't really touched a desktop PC for like years, ever since probably when I was in high school. So yeah, I was just not used to a PC anymore. So the first thing you need to decide on is what's the purpose of your build. So are you going for a gaming PC? Are you going for a video editing, photo editing, or just for school or for streaming? For me, I was going for a gaming, photo editing, video editing, streaming kind of PC. So the different parts will have to mesh together in order to achieve the build that I was going for. And also, I'll also need to make some certain sacrifices on some aspects of the build so that it can accommodate all of the things that I want for this build. After you've decided on your build, it's sort of gonna help you narrow down on the different choices. So the second thing you need to do is to decide on your budget. So once you've got your build in mind, you can now decide on like how much you're willing to spend for that build. Like for me, I have so many requirements for my PC, so I had to make like a bigger budget for my build. Like it's not super high, but it's not super low. It's sort of like mid-tier because I want so many things out of my build. Okay, so after you've decided on your build and you've decided on your budget, you can now start doing your research. The bare minimum you have to do is sort of have a basic understanding about the different parts that you need to get. So there's the processor, the motherboard, the GPU or video card if you need it, the hard drive, the memory/RAM, the power supply unit, the case. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh gosh, I wish I didn't miss anything. I think fans is like sort of optional. If they don't come in with your case, you definitely need one so that your PC build won't get too hot and things like that. I consider the monitor, which is behind me, I consider the monitor as part of the budget, but technically it's not part of the PC build because like it's not within the PC, but I included it in my budget as well because it's still a running cost. after you familiarize yourself with different parts, you could also look into sort of different builds based on the build that you want. So for example, you want a gaming build, you just look into YouTube or Google for a gaming build. Or if you want a budget gaming build, you can like indicate that so that whatever video is suggested to you would be more geared towards like the budget you have in mind. So from those kinds of video, you can sort of use the different parts that they use as a template. I suggest watching a lot of different videos so that you have comparisons, and do that extra research in the next few steps in order to narrow down and properly choose which part you're supposed to get for your build. And another thing that you can sort of look into is videos about what are the best budget options for this type of part, so that you can compare the different things that the reviewers are saying. Okay, so if you're like me who got off a template from a YouTuber's build or something like that, you already sort of have different parts on your list and you're just gonna swap them out for a more preferred part that you want. Maybe you watched a best of video and you're sort of inclined to using a product that was mentioned in that video. So you can sort of now do your research and narrow down on the different parts that you're gonna get, and like try to make sure that the parts that you're swapping out for is compatible with one another. Or if you didn't get a template, maybe you already have some specific parts in mind, like you probably watch a best of video and you want that certain processor that was mentioned and you've got your eyes set on it. So from there you can sort of decide on the other parts because they're sort of interconnected and they need to be compatible with one another. For example, for me, one of the first things that I decided on was the processor. So I decided on the AMD Ryzen 5 processor, and from there I sort of have limited options for motherboards, and with the motherboards, I also have limited options for the RAM because they have a qualified vendors list, and I didn't really want to explore a product that is not a part of the qualified vendors list because it might not work and I might have problems with them, things like that. So another thing that might help you is your purpose for doing this build. So for example, you're going to be doing gaming. Which type of game are you planning to play? So for example, you're planning to play Valorant or Fortnite. So what are the minimum specs or the recommended specs for that game? So from there, you can sort of like decide that at least you need to get this type of processor so that the game will work well and things like that. So the next part is now actually sourcing the different parts that you want to get. And this is a bit hard right now because of the pandemic, and a lot of the different parts may be out of stock, and you might have to go to your second, third, or probably look for something that will just work with your PC build. So I think with this part, you have to make sure that all the parts, or at least the processor, motherboard, and the RAM combination that you're getting are all available before buying anything or buying at least one of those three. Once you've got all your parts, all that's left is to assemble your PC. Personally, I didn't assemble my PC. I got my dad to do it because he's familiar with it, and I have no idea about assembling a PC as well. If you know someone who can assemble it for you, good for you. If you want to do it yourself, yay, because you're such a trooper. And if you're not planning to do it and you don't have anyone to do it for you, maybe you can ask the PC shops that you're sourcing the parts from if they have a service in terms of assembling the PC. So I think for that, you may have to pay for extra and things like that. You might have to consider that for your budget. So yeah, okay, so those were my tips in terms of building your PC if you have zero knowledge about building PCs. So this isn't a one-stop shop for building your PC. You'll have to refer to a lot of different videos because this is just a jumping point. The next part is I'm going to be discussing about the different parts that I use and why I use them. Maybe my thought process can help you narrow down your choice, or it might help you decide on the different parts that you're going to get. Now we're going to talk about the different parts that I got for my PC. So the first one that I got is the case. So it's the one that we bought right away. Technically it's the monitor, but it's not part of the PC build. So yeah, the case is the first thing that we bought, and my case right now is the Silverstone Primera 1. So Silverstone PM01. So that's what we got. I got a white case because I want a white case. So that was like the most important part of my case decision. It has to be white. And then the next thing that I was looking into was the thermals and the noise of the case. So for that, I watched a lot of Gamer Nexus's videos. So I like that his video reviews includes thermals and noise as well. So that was like a big consideration in terms of picking out my PC. And actually the original, or like the case that I really wanted, was the Lian Li Langcool 2 mesh. So that was the one that I really wanted, but it's out of stock everywhere, and it's a bit pricey as well. If I went with it, I would have gone over my budget, like gone over my budget. So yeah, it's also good that I didn't get it. I might upgrade to it in the future, but for now, this is the one that I got. It's not bad as well in terms of thermals, but as far as I know, in terms of like the noise levels, it's one of like the noisiest cases amongst like the graphs that he showed. But yeah, so far, I mean, it's decent. For me, thermals was much more important than the noise levels because it gets really hot here in the Philippines, especially during the summer. But like in terms of thermals, you could also have like a fan option to cool your PC. For me, I didn't go for that because I was saving on money. I mean, it's not part of my priority, so I didn't really go for an extra fan. But that's also an option if you have the budget for it, just in case you wanted to know. Next thing that we were able to buy was the graphics card. The one that I got is the Zotac RTX 2060. It's a bit higher spec, I think, than what I was originally going to buy, which was the 1660 RTX. The reason I went for the Zotac RTX 2060 is because of the price. So the 2060 actually went on sale, and like it was 100 pesos cheaper than the 1660. So I just went for like the higher spec graphic card. So yeah, that's how I ended up with the 2060, but originally I was just going for the 1660. Like it is within the minimum requirements, or even like the recommended requirements of the things that I'm planning to do, like gaming and like video editing. And like in terms of video editing and graphic cards, from what I've gathered, graphic cards aren't really that much used in terms of video editing. There are just some features that has like GPU enhancements, but in general for video editing it's more on processing, so processor and RAM. So like those are the major parts, and especially for me, since I'm just doing 1080p editing, I don't even do that much animations and just like pure editing, cutting and stuff like that. I don't really need that graphics card for video editing. So it's just more for the games that I'm planning to play. So the next part that I got was the SSD. It was sort of like a no-brainer, and something that I didn't really put much effort into deciding. We got the Samsung EVO M2 SSD. I think that's the name. So yeah, that's what I got. I opted for an SSD versus other types of hard drive like HDD and things like that, because SSD is the fastest, so I just went for that. So I have like a 500 gig SSD and like an additional terabyte of HDD. I think that's what it's called. So the next few parts are the ones that are interconnected. So those are the processor, the motherboard, and the RAM. So for the processor, we already decided that we're gonna get Ryzen 5 3600X. We chose it because like it's the best one within our budget, so we already got that down. And then like for the motherboard, our options was B450, B550, and I think X570, I think, not sure, but those are like the types of motherboard options. We went for like the B450 one because it's on the budget side, but at the same time it's like sort of a really useful type of motherboard based on the different videos that I watched. And from there, we just choose like which type of B450 motherboard we're getting. I ended up with the Aorus M B450 motherboard. I ultimately chose that one because it's within my budget. It also has like 4 slots of RAM, which I think is a good amount of slots of RAM for a motherboard, especially because I'm more in a video editing build, so I'm planning to really up my RAM gaming in the future. Okay, so next thing is the RAM. So actually originally I wanted to get 32 gigs of RAM, but in the end we opted for 16 gigs of RAM because the 32 gigs that we were eyeing at is not available anymore, and if we're already over the budget, and I think it's better to just like save on the money and just like buy it in the future when I really need the extra RAM, as opposed to trying to push for that type of build. For the RAM, I got the G.Skill's V, I think that's what it's called. G.Skill's Ripjaws V, that's what I got. Although they do recommend a 32 gig of RAM if you're video editing, but like for me, I'm not gonna do 4K editing, so I think that's not really my priority. 16 gig is already good for 1080p, so I don't really have to push for that 32 gig of RAM if I don't really have the budget for it, so I just went with the 16 gig of RAM. Okay, so one thing that I didn't really talk about is the PSU. That's because we already have our PSU, and we're just gonna reuse that, so we didn't have to buy a new one. So that's it for my PC building journey story time. I hope you guys learned something from this video. I hope you guys are able to jumpstart your PC building journey as well. If you have any other questions, let me know down in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer them. I'll try my best to recommend other YouTubers that you can watch. So if you like this video, feel free to click the like button. If you want to be updated for my future uploads, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!